Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Before we start our Srimad Bhagavatam class, let's do a simple Mangala Charana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaim Narotamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the only means of conquest, let us offer our respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, onto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, onto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and onto Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nasta Presha Avdareshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavadi Naistikhi. By regular attendance of Srimad Bhagavatam class and by rendering service to pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely vanquished, and loving the devotional service onto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established in one's heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyana Salakaya Chaksuramritanyana Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master illuminated my heart with the torch of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu-padaya Krishna Parastaya Putale Srimate Japataka Swami Iti Namni Nama Acharpada Nitai Kripapadayane Gorakatadamdaya Nirgram Thane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 23, chapter entitled The Songs of the Avanti Brahmana. So this chapter is a continuation from last week's chapter. Last week's chapter, Uddhava asked Krishna one very, very important question. Uddhava asked that even though most living entities who are addicted to fruitive activities and sense gratification, they cannot understand how the living entity takes upon superior and inferior material bodies. So Uddhava asked Krishna, please explain this. And Krishna, in a nutshell, he explained that the change of body that the living entity experiences from 8,400,000 species of bodies is only due to the desire of the living entity to become lord of material nature. They want to enjoy sense gratification in this material world. And because of this desire to enjoy, this living entity, they are engaged in fruitive activities. And these fruitive activities come in three different flavors: mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. According to the qualities of their actions, those who are in a mode of goodness will take birth in families of Brahmanas and even Devas. Those who are performing activities in a mode of passion will take birth among the human species of life, where they will over endeavor for material profit, for material gain, thinking that they can enjoy themselves. And those whose actions are in the mode of ignorance, they take birth in the species of demons and ghosts and goblins. So Krishna told Uddhava that to save oneself from this repetition of birth and death in this material world, Krishna says one must not try to enjoy sense gratification with the material senses, because this idea of enjoying sense gratification puts the living entity in illusion, and it is the greatest obstacle for his self-realization. And Krishna went on further to explain that the symptom of those who are in this illusion, that they are the enjoyer, is that they will be very affected when they are neglected. If they get insulted, if they are ridiculed or envied by bad men, or even though repeatedly agitated by being beaten, tied up, and deprived of one's occupation, spat upon or polluted with urine by ignorant people. These people all, they will get very affected when they are treated like this. On the other hand, the devotees, they will just simply tolerate all of this. They will simply tolerate this and keep their intelligence steady in spiritual life, because they understand all of this is happening because of their own reaction, of their own past activities, pure devotees. So after hearing this, Uddhava asked the fourth question. This is all happening in the chapter 22, the previous chapter. Sri Uddhava asked, "O best of speakers, please explain to me how I can properly understand this. O soul of the universe, the conditioning of one's personality in material life is very strong, and therefore it is very difficult even for learned men to tolerate the offences committed against them by ignorant people. Only your devotee who are fixed in your loving service and who have achieved peace by residing at your lotus feet are able to tolerate such offences." So in answer to this question by Uddhava, Krishna tells the story of this Avanti Brahmana. That is chapter 23. Now let's see what Krishna says. Text number 1 of chapter 23. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Lord Mukunda, the chief of the Dasras, having thus been respectfully requested by the best of his devotees, Sri Uddhava, first acknowledged the fitness of his servant's statement. Then the Lord, whose glorious exploits are most worthy of being heard, began to reply to him. Lord Sri Krishna said, O disciple of Brihaspati, there is virtually no saintly man in this world capable of resetting his own mind, even after it has been disturbed by insulting words of uncivilized men." Text number 3. Sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh insulting words that become lodged within the heart when spoken by uncivilized men. Text number 4. My dear Uddhava, in this regard, a most pious story is told, and I shall now describe it to you. Please listen with careful attention. Text number 5. Once a certain sannyasi was insulted in many ways by impious men. However, with determination, he remembered that he was suffering the fruits of his own previous karma. I will narrate to you his story and that which he spoke. Text number 6. In the country of Avanti, there once lived a certain Brahmana who was very rich and gifted with all opulence, and who was engaged in the occupation of commerce. But he was a miserly person, lusty, greedy, and very prone to anger. Text number 7. In his home, devoid of religiosity and lawful sense gratification, the family members and guests were never properly respected, even with words. He would not even allow sufficient gratification for his own body at the suitable time. So here in this verse, text number 7, Krishna is making a very important point. So in Vedic culture, if let's say your enemy were to come to your house, Vedic culture requires you to invite your enemy into your house nicely, minimum with sweet words. You see, "Come sir, welcome sir, I'm so glad you are here sir, come. You must say like this, minimum you must have sweet words. And when he enters your house, you must give the guest of your house, whether friend or enemy, a nice place to sit, a comfortable place to sit. And minimum you must give him is a glass of water. If you have no food in your house, minimum you must give him a glass of water." So this is Vedic culture. So this Avanti Brahmana, he was such a miserly person, such an ignorant person, such arrogant, that he never used to invite even his guests properly. What to speak of him enjoying the wealth that he has acquired. Text number 8. Since he was so hard-hearted and miserly, his sons, in-laws, wife, daughter, and servants began to feel inimical towards him. Becoming disgusted, they would never treat him with affection. Obviously, you can see, if you treat people badly, they will treat you badly also. Text number 9. In this way, the presiding deities of the 5 family sacrifices became angry at the Brahmana who, being niggardly, guarded his wealth like a yaksha, who has no good destination either in this world or in the next, and who was totally deprived of religiosity and sense enjoyment. This word niggardly means like a beggar. It's a very high level word in English. Text number 10. O magnanimous Uddhava, by his neglect of these demigods, he depleted his stock of piety and all his wealth. The accumulation of his repeated exhaustive endeavor was totally lost. Text number 11. Some of the wealth of this so-called Brahmana was taken away by his relatives, my dear Uddhava, some by thieves, some by whims of providence, some by effects of time, some by ordinary men, and some by government authorities. So here, I think we are all quite familiar. We have seen enough movies and enough TV series where we can see that even how rich the man might be, he is always surrounded by enemies. Those enemies can be his own wife, can be his own children. They will find ways to get money from him and they will enjoy at the cost of the so-called beloved father and beloved husband. So here is mentioned that he also lost his wealth by providence. Providence here means by natural disasters. Sometimes when something happens like there's too much flood or too much rain, or sometimes there's not enough rain, especially for agriculture, the produce from the agriculture is destroyed simply by weather changes, unexpected weatherly changes. This is all beyond his control. Text number 12. Finally, when his property was completely lost, he was never engaged in religiosity or sense enjoyment, became ignorant of his family members. Thus, he began to feel unbearable anxiety. This is normal. When the attractive feature of you become lost, everyone that was attracted to you also will become disinterested in you. So this is what happened to him. This Avanti Brahmana, when he lost all his wealth, his family members so ignored him. Text number 13. Having lost all his wealth, he felt great pain and lamentation. His throat choked up with tears, and he meditated for a long time on his fortune, his lost fortune. Then a powerful feeling of renunciation came over him. So this verse is very interesting in the sense that this Brahmana had previously been trained in pious life. But his past goodness was covered by his offensive behavior. Finally, his previous purity was reawakened within him. So this Avanti Brahmana, the real asset in his life was not his wealth. The real asset was the training that he got from the very beginning of his life when he was a young Brahmana in Vedic training, purity. He was trained to practice performing austerity, penance, sacrifice, and giving in charity. So all of this from the very beginning of life became his permanent asset. When he finally in his life came across some difficulty, his permanent asset came to help him. So when the most worst part of his life, this asset of purity within him came to assist him, and that's when he felt this powerful feeling of renunciation. This renunciation gave him great relief. Text number 14. The Brahmana spoke as follows. Oh, what great misfortune! I have simply tormented myself uselessly, struggling so hard for money that was not even intended for religiosity or material enjoyment. Text number 15. Generally, the wealth of misers never allowed them any happiness. In this life, it causes their self-torment, and when they die, it sends them to hell. So here, what he means by this wealth sends him to hell is when you have ability to worship the Supreme Lord with whatever asset you have, but you do not worship the Supreme Lord, that asset becomes the reason why you go to hell. In Bhagavad-gita, Krishna speaks about this and he uses the term vikarma. If you read chapter 3 of Bhagavad-gita, you will understand. Vikarma is activities that are not sanctioned by Vedic literatures. Text number 16. Whatever pure fame is possessed by the famous and whatever praiseworthy quality are found in the virtuous are destroyed by even a small amount of greed, just as one's attractive physical beauty is ruined by a trace of white leprosy. Text number 17. In the earning, attainment, increasing, protection, expenses, loss and enjoyment of wealth, all men experience great labor, fear, anxiety and delusion. So this is actually a very important statement for us all to remember. If we endeavor for material wealth for the purpose of gratifying our senses only, we will experience all of this. We will experience great labor, we will experience fear, anxiety and delusion. Text number 18 and 19. Theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, perplexity, pride, quarreling, enmity, faithlessness, envy, and the dangers caused by women, gambling and intoxication are the 15 undesirable qualities that contaminate men because of greed for wealth. Although these qualities are undesirable, men falsely ascribe value to them. One desiring to achieve the real benefit of life should therefore remain aloof from the undesirable material wealth. So here, undesirable wealth indicates wealth that cannot be efficiently engaged in the loving service of the Lord. Such money or property will undoubtedly pollute a man with all the above mentioned qualities and therefore should be given up. Text number 20. Even a man's brother, wife, parents and friends united with him in love will immediately break off their affectionate relationship and become enemies over a single coin. We have all experienced this. Text number 21. For even a small amount of money, these relatives and friends become very agitated and their anger is inflamed. Acting as rivals, they quickly give up all sentiments of goodwill and will reject one at a moment's notice, even to the point of committing murder. Text number 22. Those who obtain human life, which is prayed for even by the demigods, and in that human birth become situated as first-class Brahmanas, are extremely fortunate. If they disregard this important opportunity, they are certainly killing their own self-interest and thus achieve a most unfortunate end. So this human birth is better than that of demigods, ghosts, spirit, animals, trees, lifeless stones and so forth, because the demigods simply enjoy celestial pleasure, and in other forms of life there is excessive suffering. It is only in human life that one deeply considers one's ultimate benefit in life. The human form of life is so valuable because the environment that the human life gives you the opportunity to get liberation. And especially if in the human form of life, if you are born as a Brahmana, you are even more fortunate. Why? Because the Brahmanas, they give spiritual knowledge by which they recognize every living entity to be an eternal servant of the Lord. They recognize by dint of transcendental knowledge that every living entity has an intimate relationship with Sri Krishna. Therefore, everything around them reminds them of Krishna. Simply by remembering of Krishna like that, they get liberation. Text number 23. What mortal man, having achieved this human life, which is the very gateway to both heaven and liberation, would willingly become attached to the abode of worthlessness, material property? So here it is explained that one intends to use for one's personal sense gratification is called material property, whereas paraphernalia to be used in the Lord's loving service is understood to be spiritual. One should give up all one's material property by utilizing it completely in the devotional service of the Lord. A person who owns a luxury mansion should install deity of the Lord and hold regular programs to propagate Krishna consciousness. Similarly, wealth should be used to build temples of the Lord and publish literatures scientifically explain the personality of Godhead. One who blindly renounces material property without utilizing it in the service of the Lord does not understand that everything belongs to the personality of Godhead. Everything belongs to Krishna. Such blind renunciation is based on material idea that this property cannot belong to me. This property could belong to me, but I don't want it. Everything is in fact belongs to God. Knowing this, one neither tries to enjoy nor to reject the things of this world, but peacefully engages them in the service of the Lord. So this is how any one of us, you don't have to be a rich man, you don't have to own a big bungalow. Even if you have a small apartment, you live a very simple life, you can have a small altar in the house. You can have a small altar in the house, and you can invite people to come into your house at least once a week. Invite your neighbors, invite your friends, engage them in some kind of devotional activity, bhakti yoga. The easiest thing you can do is to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and read from Bhagavad-gita. That is so powerful. Like this, if one person can save one another person, like this the whole world can be saved actually. Text number 24. One who fails to distribute his wealth to the proper shareholders, the demigods, sages, forefathers and ordinary living entities, as well as his immediate relatives, in-laws and own self, is maintaining his wealth simply like a yaksha and will fall down. So here one who does not share his wealth with the above mentioned authorities and does not share his wealth with authorized persons, does not even enjoy the wealth himself, will certainly suffer unlimited problems in life. Text number 25. Discriminating persons are able to utilize their money, youth and strength to achieve perfection, but I have feverishly squandered these in the useless endeavor for further wealth. Now that I am an old man, what can I achieve? Text number 26. Why must an intelligent man suffer by his constant vain effort to get wealth? Indeed, this whole world is most bewildered by someone's illusory potency. Text number 27. For one who is in the grip of death, what is the use of wealth, or those who offer it? Sense gratification, or those who offer it, or for that matter, any type of fruitive activities which is simply cause one to again take birth in this material world. So this is a very important point. I'll read it again. For one who is in the grip of death, that is all of us. We can die anytime, we can go anytime. What is the use of wealth, or those who offer it? What is the use of sense gratification and those who offer it? And what is the use of any type of fruitive activities which simply causes one to again take birth in this material world? So this is for something for you to think about. Text number 28. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, who contained within himself all the demigods, must be satisfied with me. Indeed, he has brought me to this suffering condition and forced me to experience detachment, which is the boat to carry me over this ocean of material life. So here this Avanti Brahmana is saying that when the Lord favors you and he wants you to come back home, back to Godhead, he will remove all the obstacles that are in your way of getting liberation. So this is what happened also to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was thinking when he took initiation from his Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he thought to himself, I must do business. I must collect lots of money. Why? Because to do preaching work, you need a lot of money. But actually, that was not that was not the case. Krishna showed Srila Prabhupada such mercy that he took everything away from him. All his wealth was lost. That time, Srila Prabhupada had a factory. He was a pharmacist and he had a factory. The Japanese came to attack in India in World War II, and one of the bombs that fell in Calcutta fell on Srila Prabhupada's factory, and everything was lost. So Srila Prabhupada says that actually is the mercy of the special mercy of Krishna. Krishna takes everything away from you, all your so-called ego and your false ideas and everything gone with your wealth. So when that happened, Srila Prabhupada had no choice. He had to surrender fully to Krishna. He said to Krishna, Krishna, what you want me to do, you do. You want me to dance, I'll dance. You want me to die, I'll die. You want me to live, I'll live. Whatever it is up to you. So when Srila Prabhupada surrendered to Krishna like that, that's when he became very, very, very powerful. Text number 29. If there is any time remaining in my life, I will perform austerities and force my body to subsist on bare necessities. Without further confusion, I shall pursue that which constitute my entire self-interest in life, and I shall remain satisfied within the self. Text number 30. Thus, thus may the presiding demigods of this three worlds kindly show their mercy upon me. Indeed, Maharaj Katavanga was able to achieve the spiritual world in a single moment. So here, this Avanti Brahmana is talking about Maharaj Katavanga. There's a story in Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam about this one very, very powerful king. It's a human king. His name is Maharaj Katavanga. He was so powerful that the Devas approached him and asked him for help to fight against the demons in Swarga. So this Maharaj Katavanga went to fight for the Devas, and after he performed his duties, the Devas were very, very happy with him. So they asked him, please ask us any boon you want, we will give you. So first thing Maharaj Katavanga asked the Devas was, how much time left do I have to live? The Devas answered him, said, my dear Maharaj Katavanga, you have but a moment to live, a few seconds to live. So when this Maharaj Katavanga heard this, he closed his eyes, he sat down and he meditated upon the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Madhava. That's it. He just meditated on the lotus feet of Sri Sri Madhava. When his time was up, he got liberation straight away. So this Avanti Brahmana says, he desires this liberation that this Maharaj Katavanga got. So this ability is also available to all of us, by the way. Text number 31. Lord Sri Krishna continued, his mind thus determined that most excellent Avanti Brahmana was able to untie the knot of desire within his heart. He thus assumed the role of a peaceful and silent sannyasi mendicant. Text number 32. He wandered about the earth keeping his intelligence, senses and life air under control. To beg charity, he traveled alone to various cities and villages. He did not advertise his advanced spiritual position and thus not recognized by others. So here the Avanti Brahmana, he took sannyas. So sannyas here means actually not only wearing a saffron robe, carrying a tridanda. It is actually the one who has surrendered his thoughts, his words and his action simply for the pleasure of Sri Krishna only. So this sannyasi is not only referring to those who have taken a renounced order of life. Anyone in the Vanasarama Dharma, anyone from Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, of course, any one of them can take the attitude, the determination of a sannyasi. Okay? That is very important to understand. You can be a Grihastha also, you can be a family man, you can be a mother, and you can be a sannyas also. The way that can be done is by offering everything in your life for the pleasure of Krishna, dedicating everything for the pleasure of Krishna. For instance, if you are a father or a mother, a pure devotee would see that his or her children, life, home, property, everything belongs to Krishna. So by behaving in such a way, you make sure all your children get good Krishna conscious education. They get the most valuable education so that they can liberate themselves and save others from this repeated birth and death in this material world. So if you think like that, you can apply this in any place, even as a brahmachari, even as a vanaprastha, You can engage everything. You can engage your wealth, you can engage your intelligence, you can engage your talent, you can engage your ability, whatever you can engage for the pleasure of Krishna. So that is actually the definition of a sannyasi. Text number 33. O kind Uddhava, seeing him as an old, dirty beggar, a rowdy persons would dishonor him with many insults. So this is the test. Text number 34. Some of these persons would take away his sannyasi rod, and some the water pot which he uses as a begging bowl. Some took his deerskin seat, some his chanting beads, and some would steal his torn ragged clothes. Displaying these things before him, they would pretend to offer them back, but would then hide them again. Text number 35. When he was sitting on the bank of a river about to eat some food that he had collected by his begging, such sinful rascal would come and pass urine on it, and they would dare to spit on his head. Text number 36. Although he had taken a vow of silence, they would try to make him speak, and if he did not speak, they would beat him with a stick. Others would chastise him, saying, "This man is just a thief," and others would bind him up with a rope, shouting, "Tie him, tie him." Text number 37. They would criticize and insult him by saying, "This man is just a hypocrite and a cheat. He makes a business of religiosity simply because he lost his wealth and his family threw him out." Text number 38 and 39. Some would ridicule him by saying, "Just see this greatly powerful sage. He is as steadfast as Himalaya mountain. By practice of silence, he strives for his goal with great determination, just like a duck." Other persons would pass foul air upon him, and sometimes other would bind this twice-born Brahmana in chains and keep him captive like a pet animal. You see how much suffering. Text number 40. The Brahmana understood that all his suffering from other living beings, from the higher forces of nature and from his own body are unavoidable, being allotted to him by providence. So this is a very important point here. This Avanti Brahmana, after undergoing so much insult and so much abuse, he realized that his suffering was due to his false identification with this material body, and not to the interactions of the body with the external world. He has adjusted his Krishna consciousness and thus realized that his actual identity is an eternal spirit soul. Despite having been insulted so much like that, he understands that all of this is happening because of his own actions only, because of his own karma. Text number 41. Even while being insulted by these low-class men who were trying to affect his downfall, he remained steady in his spiritual duties. Fixing his resolution in the mode of goodness, he began to chant the following songs, the songs of the Avanti Brahmana. So in regard to this verse here, there's a very appropriate verse from Nectar of Instruction written by Srila Rupa Goswami. The verse goes that a sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demand, the action of anger, and the urge of the tongue, belly, and the genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So if you are able to control your senses, you are able to have disciples all over the world. Text number 42. This text number 42 is one of the jewel verses in this Canto 11. The Brahmana said, "These people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life." Text number 43. The powerful mind actuates the function of the material modes from which evolves the different kinds of material activities in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. From the activities in each of these modes develop the corresponding status of life. So in the mode of goodness, one considers himself to be saintly or wise person. In the mode of passion, one struggles for material success, and in the mode of ignorance, one becomes cruel, lazy, and sinful. By the combination of material modes, one identifies himself as a demigod, as a king, as a rich capitalist, a wise scholar, a beggar, unintelligent person, and so on. These conceptions are material designations generated from the mode of material nature, which the mind interprets to enjoy the temporary material senses. Even if we inform these people that they are committing many sinful offenses in order to earn money, the stubborn mind will never heed such advice, and they will think in their mind, we may think we should acquire money at all costs, since without it one can neither perform religious ceremonies nor gratify the senses with beautiful women. So these people will think like that. Text number 44. Although present along with the struggling mind within the material body, the supersoul is not endeavoring, because he is already endowed with transcendental enlightenment. Acting as my friend, he simply witnessed from his transcendental position, I, the infinitesimal spirit soul, on the other hand, have embraced this mind, which is the mirror reflecting the image of the material world. Thus I have become engaged in enjoying object of desire and am entangled due to contact with the modes of nature. Text number 45. Charity, prescribed duties, observance of major and minor regulatory principles, hearing from scriptures, pious work, and purifying vows all have as their final aim the subduing of the mind. Indeed, concentration of the mind on the Supreme is the highest yoga. So if you are confused, we have so many rituals and ceremonies in the Vedic literatures. This verse itself will tell you what the purpose of all these different sacrifices, what is the ultimate purpose is. The ultimate purpose is all to have the final aim is to subdue the mind long enough so that we can concentrate the mind on the Supreme, and that is the highest yoga, not this karma yoga and jnana yoga. These are all stepping stones only. The purpose is to concentrate on the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. Text number 46. If one's mind is perfectly fixed and pacified, then tell me, what need does one have to perform ritualistic charity and other pious rituals? And if one's mind remain uncontrolled, lost in ignorance, then of what use are these engagements for him? Text number 47. All the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of any other. He is strong than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. Therefore, anyone who can bring the mind under control becomes the master of all the senses. Text number 48. Failing to conquer this irrepressible enemy, the mind, whose urges are intolerable and who torment the heart, many people are completely bewildered and create useless quarrel with others. Thus they conclude that other people are either their friend, their enemy, or parties indifferent to them. So this is the function of the mind. The mind will categorize everything around them. Oh, this is very nice. Oh, that is not very nice. Oh, he is a friend. Oh, that person is an enemy. Oh, this person is neutral. So this is what the function of the mind. This is what the mind does. Every living entity is qualitatively one with God. There is no essential difference between one individual being and another, since all are eternal expansion of the Supreme Lord. Actually, this is the proper understanding right here. We should see everything as Krishna's property. Nothing is good or bad. Everything is belonging to Krishna. Everything is supposed to be utilized with intelligence for Krishna's pleasure. Text number 49. Persons who identify with this body, which is simply the product of material mind, are blinded to their intelligence, thinking in terms of I and mine. Because of the illusion of this is I, but that is someone else, they wander in endless darkness. Text number 50. If you say that people are the cause of my happiness and distress, then where is the place of the soul in such a conception? These happiness and distress pertain not to the soul but to the interaction of material bodies. If someone bites his tongue with his own teeth, at whom can I become angry in his suffering? Very interesting point, huh? Text number 51. If you say that the demigods who rule the bodily senses cause suffering, still, how can such suffering apply to the spirit soul? This acting and being acted upon are merely interaction of the changeable senses and their presiding deities. When one limb of the body attacks another, with whom can the person in that body be angry? So here the Brahmana is elaborately explaining the condition of self-realization, in which one understands oneself to be totally distinct from the material body and mind and the demigods who control them. Foolish conditioned souls endeavor to eliminate distress and enjoy happiness, but material happiness and distress are two sides of the same coin. Bodily happiness and distress are administered by the demigods, who can never be brought under our control. So, one should surrender to the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna in transcendental bliss and enliven the liberated souls without any interruption of anxiety and unhappiness. Text number 52. If the soul himself were the cause of happiness and distress, then we could not blame others, since happiness and distress would simply be the nature of the soul. According to this theory, nothing except the soul actually exists, and if we were to perceive something beside the soul, that would be illusion. Therefore, since happiness and distress do not actually exist in this concept, why become angry at oneself and others? So here the Avanti Brahmana is giving one very popular theory. They say that the function of the soul is to experience material happiness and distress. But the reality is the soul is so much more greater than this material world. The soul is so much more aloof from it. Actually, the soul got no business at all in this material world. Why? Because the soul is eternal in nature. It is transcendental. Whereas this material world is the total opposite of the spirit soul. This material world is temporary. It is not eternal. So how can something that is the opposite nature of the soul make the soul happy? It can never happen. So the true happiness of the spirit soul lies in the transcendental nature of the soul. And that transcendental nature is activated when one renders loving service onto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. That's all. Text number 53. And if we examine the hypothesis that the planets are the immediate cause of suffering and happiness, then also where is the relationship with the soul, who is eternal? After all, the effect of the planet applies only to things that have taken birth. Expert astrologers have moreover explained how the planets are only causing pain to each other. Therefore, since the living entity is destined from this planet and from the material body, against whom should he vent his anger? Text number 54. If we assume that fruitive work is the cause of happiness and distress, we still are not dealing with the soul. The idea of material work arises when there is a spiritual actor who is conscious and a material body that undergoes the transformation of happiness and distress as a reaction to such a work. Since the body has no life, it cannot be the actual recipient of happiness and distress, nor can the soul, who is ultimately completely spiritual and aloof from material body. Since karma thus has no ultimate basis in either the body or the soul, at whom can one become angry? Text number 55. If we accept time as the cause of happiness and distress, that experience still cannot apply to the spirit soul, since time is a manifestation of the Lord's spiritual potency, and the living entity are also expansion of the Lord's spiritual potency, manifested through time. Certainly a fire does not burn its own flames or spark, nor does the cold harm its own snowflake or hail. In fact, the spirit soul is transcendental and beyond the experience of material happiness and distress. At whom therefore should one become angry? So here Because the spirit soul is completely transcendental, the spirit soul should fix his consciousness on the transcendental Lord, who is beyond material happiness and distress. It is only when transcendental consciousness falsely identifies with dull material matter that the living entity imagines he is enjoying and suffering in this material world. This illusory identification of consciousness with matter is called false ego and is the cause of material existence, the cause of repeated birth and death. Text number 56. The false ego gives shape to the illusory material existence and thus experience material happiness and distress. The spirit soul, however, is transcendental to material nature. He never actually be affected by material happiness and distress in any place, under any circumstances, or by the agency of any person. A person who understands this has nothing whatsoever to fear from the material creation. Text number 57. This verse is another jewel verse. It's a very powerful prayer. So please listen carefully. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here the Avanti Brahmana here is giving the description of somebody who is having a determination of a sannyasi. And he is mentioning here, this is approved by the previous acharyas. All the great saintly personalities throughout the whole ages, their spiritual life started and it became a success when they completely surrendered to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. That is the true definition of a sannyas. And if you look at our Guru Parampara, there's a whole long list of them. You can see any one of them and follow in their footsteps. Text number 58. Lord Krishna said, thus becoming detached upon the loss of his property, this sage gave up his moroseness. He left home, taking sannyas, and began to travel about the earth. Even when insulted by foolish rascals, he remained unswerved from his duty and chanted this song. Text number 59. No other force besides his own mental confusion makes the soul experience happiness and distress. His perception of friends, neutral parties and enemies, and the whole material life he built around his perception are simply created out of ignorance only. These relationships are certainly based on material body and does not exist beyond the body's inevitable death. They are called ignorance or material illusion. Text number 60. My dear Uddhava, fix your intelligence on me. You should thus completely control the mind. This is the essence of the science of yoga. Text number 61. Anyone who listens to and recites to others these songs of the sannyasi, which present scientific knowledge of the Absolute, and who does meditate upon it with full attention, will never again be overwhelmed by the dualities of material happiness and distress. So this is the end of the chapter on the songs of the Avanti Brahmana. So here we can summarize that the lotus feet of Sri Krishna is actually the suitable boat for any civilized man to cross over this material of this material world of existence. That's the only solution. If you don't take advantage of this boat of Sri Krishna, then you'll always be rotting in this material world. Birth, death, disease and all this. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Radhe, Jaya Jaya Radhe. Virat Bhai.